Welcome to He Can Fix Anything. Today I'm going to be changing the alternator on this 2006 Toyota Tacoma. As you may have already noticed, I am not in Kansas anymore, Toto. I'm actually on the beach on location in Liberia, West Africa, and helping a friend fix her car. And beside me we have a pickup game of football, not American football, but the rest of the world football. We call it soccer over in the US. And so hopefully the sound isn't going to be too loud, but I'm going to show you how to switch this alternator out in the 4Runner. As with any job when you're working on electrical, you want to disconnect the battery. In this case, I'm just going to take it completely out just so we can get the most access we can down at the alternator. To disconnect these cables, normally what you'd use is probably a 10 millimeter ratchet or end wrench to take these loose. But since this is Liberia, batteries are always coming in and out. And so most likely, yep, it's not even tight. So I can take that off. And then the next thing I'm going to do is remove this hold down so that I can take the battery out of here. The next thing you want to do is to remove this belt, and you do that by loosening this tensioner right here. And that's going to take a 14 millimeter socket on a ratchet. If you have the specialty tool, which I'll list in the description below, that makes the job a little bit easier just because the room in here is a little bit tight. But in my case, I've just got this 3/8 ratchet. I have very limited tools here, so I just have to work with what I have. Let's see if I can do this without blocking the view too much. But just have to get the socket right here on the tensioner. And you turn it just like you're loosening a bolt, and that will loosen the tension on the belt. And then you slip that off the alternator. Let go without smashing your fingers, because the tensioner will go down further than it was since there's no belt on it. So we have that belt off. Now we'll just leave it right there and get it reinstalled later. Now that we have the belt out of the way, we have two bolts to loosen. There's one up here and one kind of, let's see if I can use my other hand so you can see it, one kind of back behind here. And all I gotta say is God bless Toyota, because they use the same 14 millimeter sockets on both of these. That's pretty nice. Crack loose. You never know. Being here on the beach, this salty air can eat these cars alive within a few years. Now that we have those out, I do want to make a note. They are different lengths, and the top bolt is shorter than the bottom bolt. So if you try to use the long one here, then your bottom bolt's going to be too short when you try to use it, if this one even threads in all the way. I don't know if it will or not, but you just want to make sure and make that mental note that the top bolt is the short one. Next thing we're going to do is get this pulled out, and I'm going to take this electrical connector loose, as well as this plug right here. You want to be careful now that that's loose that you don't accidentally break anything here. So I'm going to carefully kind of work this way out of here. Now this bottom bolt, I'm going to turn this around so you can see it. It actually sits, well, I'll show you when I get it out, but just want to get this unplugged. Now this electrical connection here, there's one tab you just squeeze with your thumb, kind of wiggle it out a little bit, comes right off. And for this connection here, you'll need a 10 millimeter either ratchet or open end wrench. You want to, one thing I want to show you, kind of hold this here, because if this is rusty, which it is, sometimes the whole thing will start to unscrew from the alternator. All you want is this nut to come loose. You hold this still and then loosen. And that's where the rust. Like I was saying, when you're in the US, this probably will not be rusty unless you live on the coast. But here in Liberia, this right on the beach like this, anything that isn't super protected will get rusty. So let me see if I can crack this thing loose. There we go. Hopefully the new alternator will come with a nut, which it probably will. We'll see in just a minute. We'll just take that connector off, and then we should be free. we go, got it out. Now before we go any further, you want to get the new alternator out. You want to make sure that everything lines up, that these bosses are in the same location. Everything looks the same. You also want to double check this connector, those match up with the old one. You can see there is a new nut on there, so appreciate that. Now we can go ahead and take the next step to reassembly. Now when you're putting this back in, you want to orient it correctly. There's a boss down in there that fits right in here with a hole through it. And so you want to make sure you get that lined up as you're slipping it together, and then run the bolt through. This has a threaded insert here, where on the engine for the top bolt, it's threaded in this. It looks like it's part of the cylinder head, or maybe it's bolted on, but this has a threaded insert for the top bolt. So now we just need to slip this back down kind of carefully through here. I think I'm going to go ahead and get this bottom bolt lined up and threaded, and then I'm going to do the electrical connection after that. Kind of do this a little bit blind. And just feel with your fingertips, try not to smash them. There we go. Okay, that has started threading. So now we have pretty free access to this. I can go ahead and put this positive connection back on, tighten that up. And take this top bolt, get it started. There we go. So now both bolts are started, and I can go ahead and plug this connector back in. You'll feel it kind of click, and you can always pull on it to make sure it's seated good. And now we can tighten these top and bottom bolts using the 14mm socket. My advice, go ahead and tighten them to where they're almost tight, and then go to the bottom one and tighten it. And once the bottom one's tight, then go ahead and snug the top one. Now you want to be careful. If this is aluminum threads in here, they could pull pretty easily, so you don't want to over tighten this bolt. But nice and snug, and you're good to go. All right, we're almost there. And then the next thing is to put the belt back on. So you just get your 14mm socket or that special tool. Now when you're doing this, you want to make sure that the belt, as you bring this back up, get it back on. Hopefully you can see that. You should get it back on the pulley. And then as you let that go, then you need to make sure that the belt is still everywhere else that it's supposed to be, that it didn't jump off. So just kind of look around, feel around with your hand. You'll feel it if it's out of place. And everything looks good as far as that's concerned. Now the last step in this repair is put the battery back in. So that put back into place, and we do have this custom hold down. That way when you're bouncing around on jungle roads, your battery doesn't bounce around too much. So get this back in here. Get that back on. Again, it's not how I would do it in the US, but I'm not in America. It's always a good idea not rely on the idiot light on your dash if that's what you have, but to actually use a multimeter to check the system to make sure it's charging properly. In this case, I have a Klein Tools, and with every video I always mention that there's links down below for all the parts and tools that I've used in these videos. And if you buy anything, it's an Amazon link, it's an affiliate link, and I will get a small commission if you make the purchase within 24 hours. It just helps encourage me in the work I'm doing here. And so I want to select DC current. Let's check and see. This is a brand new battery. And let's see where it's at. Go ahead and show you that. So we're sitting about 12.3 volts right now. So I'll fire it up and see what the voltage tests. Alright, got the engine running now. Let's see what kind of voltage we've got. So we're sitting about 13.9 volts, which anywhere from 13.5 to 14.5 is good for an alternator. Since this battery has a good charge already, it's not going to charge it too heavily. But yeah, I'd say this is a success. Congratulations, you just saved yourself a couple $100 compared to taking it to the shop and having a mechanic fix it for you. I'm proud of you, and now my only decision is, am I going to play some football with these guys, or am I going to jump in the ocean and take a quick bath? I think I'm going to pick the ocean. Have a great day.